About some of his reaction to the 2024 budget. I'll now hand you over to Bulelani Philip, my colleague.
Thanks again, Tsepo. Of course, the minister had a lot of tough juggling acts to do in relation to the allocations. Joining me now is Dr. Joe Phaahla, the Minister of Health. Dr. Joe Phaahla, thank you so much for your time. The allocations for health, will they ensure that hospitals and clinics have supply?
For the efforts the Minister has made to help us in the health sector, as the Minister has indicated, there will be growth in terms of the overall budget over the next 3 financial years. Just in terms of the specific areas which he has highlighted, in the area of assisting us to pay salaries, as we know, there's a 11.6 billion rand over the next 3 years, starting in the 2024 financial year from 1st of April, an amount of 3.7 billion rand, which will be allocated in addition to what was already allocated. That will help us not only address the issue of doctors, but in terms of also making sure that other staff like nurses, pharmacists, physiotherapists, and the whole comprehensive team, we can be able to add more. So that takes us somewhere. You also mentioned 27 billion over the 3 years on infrastructure. That also takes us a long way. Also in the area of health information systems, digital health systems. So all those areas do help us to improve the quality of our health services. Of course, health is always a huge demand. So we can never say it's enough, because this is closing the gap on many years of a chronic underfunding. But we are very grateful that we are not going in reverse, we are going some steps forward.
Now, the National Health Insurance Scheme, which is probably a controversial scheme from other quarters, do you think the government will be able to afford it? Let's put aside the issues of the constitutionality of how it was adopted. Do you think the government can be able to afford it?
Well, we've always been saying that this is a question of reforming. As South Africa, as a country, we're already far above many countries in terms of spending. In terms of as a percentage of GDP, we have said we are at about 8.5% of GDP spending. It's just that it's fragmented. So I hear a number of media, some analysts talking about a 20% increase in tax. I don't know where they get that, because what we're talking about, it's a reform of how those of us who have income are already spending over and above what we spend in terms of taxes to the SARS. We pay taxes also in terms of we've got a parliamentary medical scheme.
So in short, you dispute that it will lead to higher increases in tax?
All that it will actually reduce for the spending of those who have income, who are already spending a lot more beyond just what we pay in general taxes. The specific contribution towards a national health insurance fund will be far lower than what those who have income are already spending. So that's what we can assure, especially those who have income, and therefore and we can look at South Africa is not we are not an island. These are practices which are already happening, in many countries all over the world, where over and above your general tax, there is a specific contribution which you make towards a protected fund which looks after your health services.
Thank you so much, Minister. Dr. Joe Phaahla is the Minister of Health, and for more reaction, we cross back to Tsepo.
Thank you very much, Bulelani. For more reaction, we are now joined by the chair of Shell Downstream, Arwan Musaisi. Just to get a sense of the petroleum and energy industry, what is your reaction, overall impression from the minister's speech?
No, thank you, Sepo, for having me. Overall impression is that the speech was very balanced. The minister had to make very tough choices across the board, but I think I would say it's very neutral in terms of the petroleum side of the industry. Initiatives around, for instance, recovery mechanism for clean fuels, or infrastructure investment around gas moving forward, and given the importance of gas in the energy transition.
I mean, we are told that as a country, for example, we may run out of LP gas, for example, following the...
And definitely it is important. Gas plays an important role and can continue to play an important role, especially when you start to look at renewables and the future, given that gas emit 30% less than. And most important, on the other side, we do need to have newer reforms that can crowd in new investment into exploration of gas in our shores.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. The moment, Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana now joining me to talk more about his budget speech. Minister, thank you so much for making time. I know you have to cut. This is the same old, but we'll see very little deliverables on the ground. Your reaction to that?
Of course, I wouldn't expect opposition to say, oh, this is a good budget, particularly in the context when we are going to an election. So there's nothing I can say to simply statements like that, unless they were pointing out a particular aspect of the budget.
And also there's criticism again for the National Treasury to tap into the reserves, saying that that's a dangerous game. How did you come to that decision?
No, where they are making a mistake is in ignorance of the fact that that account, when it is negative, National Treasury puts money into it. In 2003, it was negative. We had to put money into it. So when it is positive, National Treasury can access the positive part of it. It's in the Act.
And this budget, would you say that it will bring a better life for Dinswalo as espoused by President Cyril Ramaphosa?
Surely, what it does, if you look at the areas of focus, is in education, health services, and so on, and the employment of doctors, teachers, and so on. So, and also to advance your wish and your ability to do that. People who are saying it should have been approached, they must ask the question, are they prepared to pay more taxes? For me to raise this thing, if people are prepared to pay more taxes, I can raise it to whatever level.
But the question...
Everybody makes that able to respond, not to generalization. I'm raise a number of sin taxes to increase
service costs.
You will see, we're saying in 2026, 25, 26, we're reaching the peak. After that, it begins to go down. But there's no government in the world that does not have debt, because always the government has got a deficit when they present a deficit. But the key question is, it a manageable level? And
just lastly, I've just spoken to the health minister here. The National Health Insurance Scheme is billed as one of the major, achievements of this democratic government. As National Treasury, have you been able to project how much it's going to cost and its impact in terms of the taxes?
We've not done that because it's not been assented yet by the president. As soon as the president does that, we'll then sit down with the Department of Health and say, how do you progressively realize objectives of this? It's not going to be all of a sudden implemented tomorrow.
All right, thank you so much, Minister Enoch Godongwana, the Finance Minister. All the best in the implementation of the national budget. Of course, he's just delivered the budget speech for this year. And just a reminder to our viewers at home is that just inside here, the House, the National Assembly is considering a recommendation for the removal of 2 judges for gross misconduct. That is suspended Western Cape High Court Judge President John Klope, as well as retired Judge Ngola Mutata. So the parties will be voting in favor or against the removal of those 2 judges. We'll wait in anticipation to see the outcome later on in the afternoon.
Budget speech, bringing you all the government's plans for the economy and what they mean for you. How will government fiscal consolidation affect you and your money? Can the minister implement further spending reductions, or will he push for more efficiency across government? Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana is under pressure to use his speech to calm investors. And with South Africans going to the polls this year, Godongwana must also restore trust in government's ability to deliver services to all South Africans. The SABC News will bring you live coverage of the budget on the 21st of February 2024. SABC News, independent, impartial.
recovering from hospital, Honorable Patricia Jalil from Good, Honorable Terry Kota from COPE, Honorable